Hi, and welcome to the Jess plus Scott plus You show tonight. This has been an exciting week. I know it's only Tuesday, but even if you go back a little farther, an exciting week. In the U.S., we had Thanksgiving, and then anybody who is participating in all of the Christmas shopping madness and decorating madness, or the fact that Hanukkah was early this year, or we're really excited about New Year. I mean, there's all kinds of things going on, and amidst all of that, one of the things that is so important to staying connected with the people that we care about, the people that we work with, that are our clients, that are our friends, that are our family, and how cool is it that our technology today can bring us that much closer together. And I was just thinking about that before the show. So with that, we're going to jump into the show open, and then we'll check in with Scott and Carrie.
Okay, let's see if my ego is getting away with me, because I think this is going to work. How about that?
Woohoo!
It worked.
Yes, it worked.
Take it away, Jess.
All right. So with that, Carrie, welcome to our show.
Thanks for having me.
Now, before we get started, everybody already knows me and Scott, so I want to spend a few minutes just with you, and then we'll bring Scott into our conversation as well. Well, and me too, because I'm going to just kind of let you run with it. Tell us a little bit about you and what you do, and maybe what you like the most about what you do.
Okay, well, I am Keri Jaehnig, and I'm here in Wilmington, Ohio, which is near Cincinnati and Columbus. And I'm originally from Michigan, though, so when the Buckeyes play the Wolverines, I'm in maize and blue. But I have spent, gosh, I think all of my working years in sales and marketing, but also things that required building of community, and that's why we're here today to talk about community building. Before I worked in social media, I was working in international educational exchange, and so what I was doing is building communities or clusters of folks that then connected worldwide, and so that included, you know, bringing people from other countries in with Americans and putting them together for educational experiences, and it was like life in 3D, community in 3D. It was very personal and in your face, but also fun and you know, the most rewarding and most educational thing I ever did. And that also required, though, because it was nonprofit, I needed to be able to market and sell my programs very creatively on a very, very low budget or no budget. And so, gosh, when things changed, the world started spinning in another way, and technology took us there. I said, wow, how can I stay ahead of the curve, and how can I make this work? And so I ended up, email marketing was a forte for me. I did it very well. I put it on the map for political campaigning in my area. And so I took that and social media and just learned everything I could and ran with it. And now I'm an online community manager. I call it kind of a professional plate spinner, if you will, because there's always something going on. It's 24/7, and I nurture online communities and manage social media for clients around the world. So I hope that answers your question, Jessica.
That's awesome. And it's a little later for you than it is for us. We're already an evening show on the West Coast, and you are 3 hours ahead of us. So you're joining us after a very hard day of being online and with people and communities. Now, how late do you normally work?
Oh, I can't remember a day when I was in bed before 1 a.m.
Are you a late riser then?
No, these days I'm usually up by 5. So I mean, really, my life is pretty 24/7.
It is. Wow.
So were you a night person before you met social media, or did social media turn you into a night person?
I have to say I've been a night owl as long as I can remember. So it's not a big deal for me to be up late. However, I've never really been a morning person. So the fact that people see me at 5 a.m. doing anything these days is a tad surprising for them.
So how are you today? How has your day been today, Keri?
I am well, Jessica. It's been a really great day, an interesting day. What about for you?
Also pretty amazing. I actually spent a lot of time today in Hangouts and in live person meetings. How about you, Scott?
Well, my day started off terrible because I tried to join Ray Hilt's the Lunch Bunch, the hangout that you were in, and I
Yeah.
couldn't. So I had to watch from the outside. But I do see that Ray is staying up late tonight, and in our comments he says, "Figure you'd have a purple tree, Carrie."
Can you
Love it.
see the tree still?
So
Let's
you
have
two
a
know
little-
each other? You and Ray are friends?
Ray
For him to
is
be.
my go-to Google Plus guy. Where I am more the Facebook girl, he's my Google Plus guy.
Ah,
And we certainly do know each other.
okay. Well, you make a good combo then.
I love it.
I have not been watching the chat. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's totally okay. That's what Scott and I will take care of that, and I'm glad he is because
Well,
I
I've got 4 monitors here, so I can monitor the event page.
Awesome.
I tell you what, and I have just enough bandwidth to barely get my picture to show up here, and he's over there sprouting his 4 monitors. Probably the wrong word, but he's got his 4 monitors. He's all high tech. It's pretty awesome. How about you? Do you work with more than one monitor with what you do, Keri?
I love my laptop. That's kind of like my survival kit. It's everything. It's my office. It's my personal communicator. Everything in one. I do have an iPad Mini, and I have an iPhone. So I don't think there are. Well, sometimes they're in use at the same time. But when I attend online seminars, webinars, whatever, I do sometimes have another laptop that allows me to tweet chat at the same time, so I can watch and tweet chat, and just really rock it.
That's
So
very cool.
so when you say you have webinars and so forth, is it the webinars that you are taking as a participant or ones that you're conducting as the presenter?
Well, I will tell you, when I'm running a webinar, which I'm just getting comfortable doing that on my own, I'm not tweet chatting. I'm not doing that. But when I'm taking, I'm participating in a webinar for learning purposes, I do the tweet chat as often as I can. And I will tell you, I make it a priority to learn daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. You have to keep doing that. You have to keep educating yourself, or this world will leave you behind. So that's my personal, and I feel that's my edge. I know that there are people that are not doing it.
So I want to explore that a little bit more. Now, if you had somebody besides you running the webinar, do you think you would do more in terms of trying to have a chat that you were engaging and actually using that as part of your webinar also? Is it a bandwidth piece, or is it something else for you?
It's not a bandwidth issue. It's that when I'm giving a webinar, I want to give my full attention to offering the value and being personable and personal with folks. If I were to bring tweet chat into it, I would have someone do the tweeting.
Okay.
I think that's just the most fair and most, I think, professional way.
So not split. Yeah. So your attention is not split.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that that's a huge. That's actually a really important trait of working with communities and people, whether you know them or don't know them, is to have that focused attention for them when you're in the moment with them.
I think my phone is really excited about your event page. That's got to be that.
Is it Ray? Ray's sharing some things on the page. I think I saw more.
I turned it off.
I think it was my cat Leonora calling you.
Times in the day.
That's an inside joke. Leonora, our cat, has a tendency to complain, so if I leave, it's because there's a cat in the background.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was reviewing what I talk most about when it's social media, and if there's one word that I probably use more than any other word, it's the word community. And we've gone all through skirting around the edges the neighborhoods of community. But one of the reasons why we're so excited having you on is because this is home base for you. This is what you've done in the past in the real world, and you've translated those into being able to do it online. You were international before, and you're still international now. So to just kind of get the ball rolling, I noticed that you have three types of communities that within which you engage yourself. One of them is for business brands, right? Another is for nonprofit organizations, and then the third would be public figures. So I've got more questions, but I would love to hear your comments to compare and contrast those three communities. What's similar, what's dissimilar? I want it to be an open-ended question, and maybe we can drill down further as the conversation goes on.
Sure. Absolutely. So I would say, just first off, that I think when you're dealing with social media and you're dealing with communities, instead of looking at it as separate, I think they're all very similar. Because if you're not business to people, which you'll hear many people refer to, you know, the famous consultants, they'll talk business to community, business to business, and business to people. If you're not in the business to people mindset, you miss the boat. And so I would just like to say that I think that that's where it's at. It's every community is person to person, people to people, source to person. And I think I'd like to start there, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I was pausing for you.
For me,
okay.
Were you pausing for me?
Like you were, yeah.
Usually we're really in sync on this. Well, I find that really interesting, Carrie, that you say person to person. Is it that when you are, by and large, engaging, you have a single person in mind that you are trying to, even if you don't know who that person is, or is it like a persona or group of people, or is it, you know, all of those people who, you know, fall within this category? How do you parse it, and how does that translate in the real world?
Sure. So let's just take it from a client perspective. Every client has a market that they're trying to reach, and they all have their each individual goals that are different and unique from any other. But when you break it down, and let's say I go to a Facebook page and I'm interacting with the community there, I've been experiencing the space for a while, and so I know those regulars who are on the page. I know who's new, and it's very rare. But sometimes you're speaking with that individual person. Sometimes you're you're posting originally for a group, and then it just rolls on. It becomes more personal. So I hope that answers your question.
What it sounds like is, what you're saying is, you're starting a conversation maybe to a group, or you're posting something you think a group would like, and then when individuals respond, you now have a much more focused dialogue, and you don't know where that conversation may go, but there is one to be had.
Absolutely. So it's very similar. Like, we started the show for an audience, but now we're talking one-on-one, and people are talking with us, and so we're responding. It's the same thing, except you're typing instead of talking live.
Mm-hmm.
I think
when you're thinking, and I love this, and I might be pulling a Scott, I don't know, because now here I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, so we've got this, when it comes down people to people, the businesses that you work with, do they tend to be businesses that that you are helping educate, that they're talking to people and not people? Like you and me and Scott versus just, hello world, it's so nice to see you today. Hello world, this is what I have to tell you today.
That's a good question. I think that first, every piece of your community is a tad different. Like, so Facebook is different than Twitter, is different than Google+, is different than Pinterest, Instagram. There's a different feel to every community, but as a whole, it's one big community. They just live in different houses, so to speak. So it's kind of a neighborhood. I guess, you are, when you first start out in social media or on the social platforms, of course, your message is general because you're trying to attract that target market. But as you roll with it, as people are attracted and it becomes more individual, you can then tune your message into that persona. And we talked about personas when I tuned in with you last time, or a few weeks ago. Certainly there's a persona that you're speaking to, certainly. But then that persona becomes more personalized. It becomes more people-oriented, I guess. I would say that would be, because we're starting out broad and going, I would say that.
Now, would you say that I'm sorry, Scott, go ahead.
No, well, I'll jump in, and the next time I'll let you jump in. It sounds like, to start off social media, it's sort of like moving to a new town where everything is a little bit contrived, or a little bit, everything is kind of strange. But the longer you're in the new town, you're in your neighborhood, you get to know your neighbors, you get to know where the grocers and so forth. It becomes increasingly personal until after a while the artificial component is replaced by something that's a little more genuine. I've got two questions. Well, this is my first question, then I've got a follow-up question.
Mm-hmm.
Is that your experience based on what I think I've just heard you say?
I think it becomes more and more sculpted as time goes on. I think that's a simple way to say it. But you're always listening to your community. So that's where the science of analytics comes in. You have to be a socializer, but you also have to be a scientist, because if you're not looking at your analytics to know what works, you're not a responsible community manager. At the same time, a good community manager is going to know what's working and what's not based on the reaction on the page or in the genre on the platform. So it's very much, yes, you're posting, yes, you're speaking, but you're listening too. It's give and take, both back and forth, both ways.
Now, when you're wearing your scientist hat, and you're thinking, and knowing that your scientist hat's probably going to be a little bit different with each community that you're involved in, how do you have like a tip or an idea of? And you also mentioned that it gets easier. Does it get easier because you have that conversation going, or does it get easier because you've done it long enough? Your scientist hat is helping you find the right path to take and actually see what's working and not working.
It's kind of a little of all of the above, I think. I recently helped kick off a brand, and it was an interesting opportunity to begin with them, and as I'm following it through, it's becoming more and more interesting. They'll definitely be a national brand, if not international, and so it's kind of exciting at the same time. There's more of the story, but it was very like, oh wow, we have to start somewhere. What do we do? And then you do what you know what is right, and there's a little bit of the science there, but then you're like, okay, how will it go? And then you kind of engage, and I guess you just continue to sculpt. You continue to plant your trees, or even so, you're just and as you get reaction and as you learn what works, you just continue to build on it. So that's why we're talking about community building. It's first you have to draw your hopeful picture, your persona, then you plant some seeds, and then you water them and reap and sow, and you're constantly building on. You have to attract new audience. You're constantly building, but you're also building that interaction as well, and the momentum, and that's the best. I think that's the best answer I can give you.
And is there, going back to your trees, how often do you actually move a tree that you've planted?
Do I move it?
Yeah, so you've put it in the ground, it's part of your landscape, but sometimes trees have to be moved. Are you is what you do, and when we're thinking about community, does it have that type of flexibility? So we can say, wow, that worked for us, but our business is taking a little bit of a different turn, so we've got to do something different with what we've been doing over here.
Yeah, sure. So, I think any successful online marketing people, or any successful company that's doing well with online marketing, you're going to have that website and that blog. That's your first and foremost hub, and then you probably got Facebook and Twitter, and we're seeing that Google Plus and LinkedIn and so forth, and you have this portfolio of networks that you attract different audiences from and keep pulling and leading them back to your hub and so forth. When you decide that, wow, this tree over here isn't quite what I wanted for my decor, you might park it, and go, I think there's some better fun over here, and go and try it. But you're keeping your eye on that tree. It doesn't go away. You might not water it as often, or you might not prune it this spring. But I don't think you move it. I think you care for it differently.
Here I thought Jess was referring to chopping the tree down.
Well, I do have an arborist in the house right now.
You do? Oh.
I do have an arborist in the house right now.
Ray has a question that might be apropos at the moment, and it's a good one. He says, do you set out to create communities based on target markets, or do they form organically from the people you engage with?
Do you set out to find a target market? Yes, you absolutely do. But I think it does ebb and flow and evolve based on what's happening. I think it's both.
So it takes a life of its own.
Sure.
Because you're listening, and who knows, you send things out, and then who knows what's coming back. But instead of ignoring it, you pay attention to it and then react to what comes back.
Okay.
You absolutely
so how
do.
much weight would you put on each one of those?
What's that?
I said, so how much weight would you put on each one of those? It sounds like what you and Scott were saying was that they could be weighted equally, and you just pick a place and start. Or is it you actually have to have a two-prong approach and do both at the same time?
It's two-pronged. I think you have to have a goal. You always have to have a why. So you're okay, this is why we have this community, to attract this segment of the market so that they will do this when they get to our website. Okay, that's a good way to break it down. So you're constantly thinking this is our goal, but if you're not responding to what is happening in that community and reacting to the vibration that they're giving you, you're losing out. So it's definitely two-pronged. It's definitely ebb and flow. And then if you decide, oh, this effort isn't quite what we wanted, you turn the direction to where you want it to go.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would say is I think is smart.
So not a hard and fast plan that we live and die by. Something that we start with, knowing that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I could have aimed for. Well, there's a group that I own, and I aimed for one thing, but it's completely a different story. Is the story that's happening now best? Yes, but I didn't think it would be that. So I think that, sure, and it's like, when you go to a party, okay, and this is an analogy that a lot of people have used. When you go to a party, you don't go, okay, I know this is what's going to happen. I'm going to talk to this person at this time, and they're going to tell me this, and they're going to buy me this drink. You don't go in there and do that. You go to the party, you have a good time, and you come away with the experience you had. It's the same thing. Social media is a party. And so if you go in and say, in 6 months, I'm going to have, 50,000 fans, and so many people are going to be reacting on the page, I'm sorry, you don't understand social media. But if you say, I'm going to go in there and form a community and interact with the fans or the followers and make everything I can out of it, okay. But you can't say, in 6 months we're going to have 50,000 fans. No, I'm sorry.
So here's a question I have. The relationship that the folks have, they have with you, right? What role does your client have? And my follow-up question is, how much of your time and energy do you devote to cultivating the clientele as having a relationship with them, and how much do you turn around 180 degrees and you're actually educating your clients and bringing them to the party as well?
Okay, the first question, how much time am I spending on?
Well, it's that the relationship is between you and the community, so you are representing the business. So I guess there are dynamics. You have to know the business in order to represent it, right. And I'm just fascinated by this special role, this intermediary role, because people don't go into business to be social media. They go into business to sell widgets or to provide a service, and yet you are the pathway by which they can, in this brand new world, connect with their customers. So it's a fascinating role that you play representing the business. So how much of the business is passes through you, and how much do you actually put the boss in, directly in the line of fire, as it were, and have that person or that company interact directly with their clientele? How does that all work?
Well, sure. At the end of the day, the client drives the boat. They're like, this is what the plan is. But we're working together, and it's a matter of I become the brand voice, and I'm speaking their language with kind of a mask on. I would say is kind of a good analogy. When I'm speaking community, it's we. We love the way you think, or wow, that's it's a we, or I'll specifically sign my name so that they know it's coming from a person on behalf of the company. Or when there's a personal inquiry made, it's Carrie for team, whatever the client name is. I'm always with them holding my hand in some way because that's very essential. The community has to know that the brand is there, but of course the brand isn't going to be able to spend 15 hours of work per day on their online community. They need to be selling widgets. So, and how that 14 or 15 hours of work per day happens is like the secret sauce. So.
Okay, so when you're thinking about that, and I'm going to go back to public, I know public figures is not what I'm going to use it here, but let's say the public figures in a brand. Okay, so you are a community manager, you are part of this team, and you're bringing that team along, and you are an extension of their communications, media, marketing department in building this community. Are there other people at the same time within the company that you're saying it's really important that you are also listening and accessible? And so here's what that means, and here's how to do that, and here are a few things you can do that don't really add to your day, but are necessary for success of the longevity of being a social company, of having that presence across every aspect of a business. So whether it's a middle manager, whether it's a senior manager, whether it's a customer service representative.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's kind of there's a multiple answer. Okay, so as the social media manager, I'm working with the client, and there is a set of expectations. And I have to say, and I'll tell you, when I first started out, I did it completely wrong, and I needed to be, I did it wrong. So
Okay.
Then I learned the value of collaboration in the most amplified sense, and there is always a contact or a set of contacts that I'm working with, and there's a set of expectations and responsibilities on both ends. So we're working hand in hand, and hopefully there are regular meetings or communications in some way, touching base, and they're reporting to me what's happening, I'm reporting to them what's going on, and there's certainly a person or people that I'm collaborating with all the time. So I hope that's what you were looking for.
I'm going to have you expand on that. So let's say you do all of that, because that's what the extension and your secret sauce is all about. How do you make the top person, whether that be, the entrepreneur, the person in business for themselves, the CEO of a company, a small, medium-sized business, do they come to you and say, or do you go to them and say, here's what needs to happen to be social, or this is what I'm hearing, how does that actually impact me? Things like that. Do they want to be more social? Do they want to say, hey, Carrie, how can we help you even more? Is there something else we can do? Or do they come to you and say, can you be this person and this person in addition to?
Yeah, naturally, people like to go, you own this piece of whatever, and they don't have to think about it. Talk to the hand, There's a little bit of that, I think, every time. But of course, we're all going to go, okay, no, we need to work together. And I think that, the ultimate situation is that through the social interaction, I'm learning things, and I'm taking that feedback back to them. They're going, hey, this is how we're going to use it, and why don't you take this back into the field? and it's constantly a feeding back and forth. Like for instance, for a client yesterday, I found this really cool place that they could register their cool technology. It's not going to be a huge, like, Nobel Peace Prize winning action, but it's kind of like it can't hurt, and it's another place that they're found online for this audience that's good for their market to find them. And then they do that, and so does this article on them. It's everything feeds into a result in some way. It's a magic of social listening. It's a magic of dividing responsibilities fairly and equally, and it's a matter of keeping the plate spinning.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, there's got to be a lot. Excuse me. There's got to be a lot of education in what you do, because I visited your website and I started to catalog or find out a way of presenting all of the resources that you have presented, and I got up to 10 screen shares, each of which had 5 or 10, let's say 10 resources each. So that's 100 different URLs of resources under different categories that you have just on one tab on your website. So you don't have that just to look pretty. I imagine that there's a lot of just education and not indoctrination, but it's so new to all of us. Somebody has to lead the way, and that's just got to be part of your job.
To be educating?
To educate and to provide resources and to bring people up to this is the way it's done nowadays. It used to be done that way, and now it's done this way. And it's
Absolutely.
changing all the time, right?
Absolutely. Well, especially, Facebook changes every 5 minutes, so you have to come back and say, no, we can't do it this way this week. We have to do it that way, and oh, by the way, maybe they won't work today. Yeah, I think there's always education, and that's what we have video tutorials for. But
why did you choose the name Idea Girl Media?
Oh, sure. This is a fun one. Back when I worked in educational exchange, I mean, really, you had to be creative to market your programs, and so I was just the one that just continued to think, how can we do this better, more efficiently, have more fun? And so I was always throwing ideas out there, and I was passionate about making this whole thing work, and I became known as the Idea Girl. Hey, someone had a question. I wonder if we tried this. They go, yeah, go talk to the Idea Girl.
Huh.
It was just like that.
That's very cool. That's very cool.
Yeah. And so when I was forming my company, I just sort of ran with that. That's, yeah.
I like it. Okay, so now, and this is a question for Scott too, and so I suppose I should probably be prepared to answer it, even though I don't know if I am. And that is, for Keri and Scott, what do you feel like you're social enough? So with all of the stuff that you do and the services that you provide your clients, do you feel like you're social enough to maintain what you need to propel your own business forward?
Well, can I answer that right now?
Absolutely.
If I am not my own client, I am not leading by example. So my Facebook, my Twitter, I'm not going to say my LinkedIn because I'm not very happy with them. They have this technicality that's kind of taking my company page hostage. But yeah, there are just some technicalities, wonderful possibilities on LinkedIn, but I just wish that they would clean their stuff up, So I think if I'm not leading by example, how does a client know what to expect from me? First of all, second, am I social enough? I think that because I'm a social media manager or community manager, I can always put more time in being social. And two, if you're working with content creation, and hopefully it's going to come really soon that I have my own little VA, when I can not have to do some of the content creation that I work with, wow, I can't believe how much would rock, So I think at the end of the day, we're never social enough.
What about you, Scott?
Oh,
go ahead, please. Scott, take the floor.
I fall so beneath the the level of what would be acceptable on social media. I feel like I'm learning more and more all the time, but I've been paying attention. And maybe a day goes by, but not many, that I don't think, man, I've got to do housekeeping over here in terms of my notifications. I've got to start paying attention to that over there. I shouldn't. No, I'm just, way underneath where I need a social media manager myself, because I guess what it is that it'll allow me to be empathetic with all of those other small entrepreneurs, small business people out there who say, where do you find the time for it? It's just so overwhelming. I don't like that question, Jess. I wish you'd moved the program on to something else.
Okay, so this is where we go. Now, Jess, you answer your own question.
Right.
Yeah, there
exactly.
we go.
I know. The answer is yeah. I can always be more social, and I love that you said that, because I believe that that's always the case. And for me, it's also very hard because there are so many things that require attention, because if I am being social, I'm not actually creating content to then share out socially and participate and give back. And if I'm doing those two things, then I also have to find the time for making sure I'm taking care of the client business. And so within my team, it's always a constant struggle for who's going to do what, when, and where to make sure that we're maximizing the time that we've got to do that. And I think that it's a constant balancing act, and almost. It was really funny. Let's see. What I would compare it to parenting. Doesn't come with a handbook. Neither really does social media. So you can read a lot of books about it. You can go get lots of advice about it. But in the end, you've got to make your decisions and run with it and see what happens. And if it doesn't work the way you wanted, you try it out again. And then that's where I really rely on you, Keri, and I can go, okay, I'm going to just go look at Keri's page, and I'm going to look at her Facebook page, and I'm just going to have a really good time for 15 minutes, and then I feel better. And then I'm like, okay, I can go back to what I was doing before.
Well, I'm happy to be there.
And we're learning all the time, and we're getting more skillful all the time as well. So.
And it's hard with, okay, so on average, I want to know how many social, and this is also a question for you, Scott, but Keri, on average, your clients, how many social networks on average do you work with when you're being a community manager for a company?
Yeah, sure. So usually 3 is a good starting point, and then I have on up to 8. That I'm working with for clients. And it's different. It's very specific per client, and no formula. There's no specific. Yes, Facebook and Twitter, and there's no set formula, because each client is different. Each goal is different. It's never the same thing twice. Is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Did you ask that question to Scott as well?
I did.
Okay. I'm listening with big ears.
So, it's my turn. I left a media job where I was learning social media on the job training, and then people who know me know this story well, and I won't repeat too much of it. But I took I gave myself a year to learn social media, and I became increasingly frustrated with it, because I thought that I had to be a social media manager, and I thought that social media meant Facebook. So when I realized that social media wasn't necessarily Facebook, and I didn't personally have to be a social media manager but I could be something else, then the sea parted, and I was able to come to the promised land. So I focus in on Google Plus primarily. I like Twitter, but I keep on forgetting to engage there. And if you don't have a lot of juice in Twitter, it's hard to, it's just, you can't dabble in it. You have to.
Can we talk about Twitter for a minute?
Let's talk about Twitter.
Can we do that?
I will tell you, when I first I was really like, oh, really, social media at first. I was so happy with the email, like, get out of here. Facebook, oh, come on, And then when I think I signed up for LinkedIn first, and then I was like, oh, but you got to sign up for Facebook. I actually wrote a post for this for search engine people. I should find it at some point, and I'll get it to you. But, it was like, oh, LinkedIn, and then it was Facebook, and it was like, the things that happened on Facebook, I was like, wow, this really is a connector, and it's the community, it's so awesome. And then people were like inviting me to Twitter, and I was like, Twitter, come on, I don't even understand what they're talking about. And it was like Twitterese, and like Twitter. And I think it was a full year before I even accepted an invite to go in. And then I said yes, and I signed up, and then I left it blank for like 3 months, and then I finally went in. And I have to say that Twitter is now, it might be my favorite network because it's so community building. It's so now and in your face in a good way, and it's just an exchange of ideas in such a way that actually makes it's kind of defined our life. We're now this 140 character civilization, and I think there's a value to that, because I would have been, when I wrote something, it was, 2,500 words at the very least, So I think it's been a good way to get people more clear.
And I love that, because it is easy for us to be verbose. It is really easy for us to be verbose, and our message can become lost. And so having that 140 characters, and I will tell you, I really like Twitter. Twitter's has been the platform that I spent the most time on, and Google Plus now rivals that. And because I can actually say a little bit more than 140 characters, I can actually be a little more. I can share a complete idea instead of having 3 replies that are cryptic sentences.
I agree with you there, but I'll tell you, I'm a little bit of a rebel on Google. I mean, like, I've had some huge success on Google Plus, but for my own self, it's like that's almost the last place I check in for myself, for me, just because I'm doing, for so many others. Now, I have a question here. Something from Phil. Does Phil have a last name?
Bauer or Bowyer. I'm sorry, Phil, if I said your name.
Okay, no, it's okay. I was just wondering if another Phil was joining us today. No, I'm happy to answer. What are my top 3 platforms for building community, and why? Wow, again, it's customized per goal and client. I like Facebook, Twitter, like I just said. I'm more and more enjoying Instagram, but I don't know if it's necessarily a community builder yet. I would have to say that you can build a community on Google+, but there's just so many new things going on. So I'm fascinated with Instagram. I think we're going to see a lot more from Instagram this year, and I'm actually I have some plans for Instagram myself. So I'm going to leave it there.
Okay. Awesome. And so we're going to jump right in, because this is a good segue into our This is our +2 takeaway section. And Carrie has put something together really special for us. Everything that we're going to talk about, and probably more, we have a little presentation. You're going to get to list Carrie. And that's okay. I didn't know I thought that was me. I was like, what happened to my voice? That was kind of cool.
I forgot my computer does that on the hour.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
Way cool.
That's your little fish bubbles.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's awesome. We all need something like a fish bubble. I think so. Anyway, so our +2 takeaway. Carrie has put together several resources, and then after our show tonight, we will post them all onto the event page as a resource for you. And we're going to just let Carrie talk to you, and Carrie's going to tell Scott where to click, when to click, if she wants him to click, and we'll just go from there. What do you think about that, Carrie?
Okay. I mean, well, I maybe you guys should decide when to click. I'm comfortable telling you, but
okay.
Well,
I just want to make sure that you get what you need from what I gave you.
Absolutely. I think we've got stuff. Let's work with that, and feel free to go off script anytime. How about that?
Awesome.
take whatever tangents from the slides here.
Okay, so are you telling me put this front and center and blue box it?
Yes.
Okay.
So one of the cool things that Carrie has done and that she shared with us is that she has a countdown to Christmas and then something for 2014. So I put them in something that would be a little more suitable for television.
Yeah. So yes, if I can just interrupt, I'm sorry. Now I see what you're saying.
Go for it. Yeah.
For last year, this was a really interesting way that I built my Facebook community. I had this idea that I wanted to give something to my community for Christmas, but I also like the idea of an advent calendar. And so this is the third year I'm doing it now, but this is last year's that you're looking at there. I offered a tip or a tool or something special people could run with every day from December 1st to December 24th in my Facebook community. And it's never a countdown without a bonus at the end, so of course they got a nice Christmas gift. But yeah, this is what you're seeing there from last year. So go ahead. A special countdown of super savvy tips and treats. Yeah, go ahead. The Social Smart Business Tip. And actually what I did is I made kind of a map of these are the categories I wanted people to know about. This is what I think would be helpful, especially pertaining to going forward. And yeah, make it a habit to check in daily and be social. And it's amazing to know how these things have changed. Like, that wasn't the same. I didn't use the same tip this year, And I think it's representative of how much people have learned in a year, what communities are up to now as opposed to then. But yeah, be social daily. Go. And the online marketing tool I gave last year was the Marketing Grader, and it's still there. It's you can go to the link that is associated with the tip, and this is available either in a blog post or on my Pinterest. But the Marketing Grader, and it actually gives you feedback for your specific website, and it'll tell you what you need to do to be more effective in your marketing for yourself on your website. Am I giving you good stuff? This is okay. So then, number 3. This was actually at that time a tip from someone else, and I liked it a lot, and so I offered it to my community as well. And that link there, abine.com. It helps stop the pop-ups and online tracking and so forth. I haven't checked in with it in a while. I'm not sure if I'm still loving it or not, because I've switched browsers since then, and I don't notice the same things. So I would, and it's not on my list for this year at all either.
So that was December 1st through December 3rd for last year, and now you've done the same thing here, right?
Yes, and it's really interesting. I love purple. I've got my purple Christmas tree, and over the last few years, I've just become known for my purple, and so I stuck with what my brand was all about. And I had a wonderful person design this. I just really think it's nifty. It's sparkly and effervescent and very Christmassy, but purple. So I kept my map the same from last year to this year, and of course we have a Social Smart Business Tip again this year. You see it here, plan, where last year we talked about be social. I think we can't be social in this world today unless we're planning our content, giving ourselves a skeleton to work from. And actually, right behind me, you'll see also like a calendar kind of thing on the wall, and I have holidays and specific events that are going on with me that helps me then visualize my whole entire year. But this, I'm not saying you have to have every minute plan, because if you do that in social media, you cannot exist. There's no room for the whim. But if you have at least a skeleton that you can sculpt and move around as you go, I think that's the wisest thing. You'll at least sleep at night. And then I gave a link for a calendar that kind of gives those fun holidays, brownie locks. I want to make sure I cover Gordon Diver. Is it fair to presume you've created a structure with your clients based on their goals that define initial communications with their perspective? Yes, I think it's very fair. I think if we're communicating with our client, we've got we've got goals and expectations certainly agreed upon, and it's also, this might be what Gordon is looking for. It's a matter of making that agreement the best agreement with your client, and that you both have goals and responsibilities. So if that's if it was okay to answer that question there, but yeah, go ahead. I'm happy to jump back to the +2 takeaway. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
This is working out
It
well.
might be a good little thing, to talk about, because all of the tips so far and all of the stuff that people find if they come to your Facebook page and sign up for your newsletter to get all of these tips themselves, I think it comes down to that, is what is the goal and how is the communication going to occur? And you're willing to come to the table with your half, and what about how do you impart that knowledge on a client that they've got to show up with the other half?
There are reports that we share together, and two, if I'm doing all the work, then it's never going to be with their voice. So if they're coming to me with their blog posts and they're coming to me with, oh gosh, this is the update for our company, we need to make sure that that's implemented into our strategy. This is our promotions calendar. And this is how we're going to make sure that we're both up to date. I think that's essential. I think it's fair then to say that we can have a structure that benefits the client, but it is also fair to the community manager. And I hope that's what he was getting at. If not, I'm happy to answer that.
Yeah, if not, type it in somewhere and I'll see if I can find it.
Yeah, sure.
To share it back out.
But let's hop back to the number 2. I want to make sure that we're getting the most for our time. Online marketing tool, number 2. Website effectiveness. I actually gave a trio of tools, and my goal is to offer value to my community. If I'm not offering value, why am I there? So I actually gave them more than one tool for this year, and it kind of gives a trio to how your website looks, how fast it's running, and if you have your content in the right place, your best content in the most looked at, visualized places. So it's kind of like that starting point of, okay, I've got the efficiency and the wow in there. Now I can go on and be social. Is the method to the madness there?
Oh, and actually, I think that's something that we tend to overlook. Now, with with the sites that we have, I'm going to just kind of hang out on that one for a minute. Have you found in the testing that you've done with your website, and we were having a conversation at one point, and you're going through some changes on your website. Are there plugins and additions to your website that you found actually ended up being some dead weight, that the speed issue was big enough that you might have weighed them right off of your website?
Yeah, there was a point at which I had gotten so excited about all those plugins that sounded so yummy in those learning sessions that I had them all together, and they were like, my site was loading like a lead balloon. And so you have to think, okay, is this going to facilitate my purpose? Is this plugin really beneficial, or can I do this function better with no plugin, or can I take 8 plugins and use 2? Yeah, the plugins they get you in trouble, and they're like candy.
They are like candy on so many levels.
Yeah, I'm about ready to add another plugin, and right now I will tell you, my site is theme free. Like, you don't go out and buy my theme. It was specifically coded and specifically it's called the Groovy theme because
I love it.
My word, and it's the Groovy theme because it was customized for me, and so I'm about ready to add this plugin that I'm not sure my web developer will be happy with, and so we're going to see if it works or doesn't over the holiday.
That's awesome.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we took another tangent. Is there more in here?
So online productivity tool, Trello. I don't know if either of you use Trello, and this is another one that was suggested to me by someone else that I collaborate quite a lot with, and I was like, oh, really? Do I need this other tool? And what's the value of this? But if I did not use Trello, I would not make it through the day. And you can customize the way you use it with the various functions and the options that they have. You can import a calendar to give yourself alarms, or you cannot use the calendar. I've actually, I do not like what other content calendars online offer, because they want you to be in an Excel spreadsheet, and then you can't put your images in there, and it's just a big bunch of mess in that Excel spreadsheet. So I've actually constructed my Trello to be my content calendar for my clients and myself, but I'm able to store my images in there and organize things with links or videos or whatever that makes sense. But it's also kind of like a little clearinghouse for me. But I also can certainly set alarms for certain projects, and there are a few helpful hands that help me surface content, and so we'll kind of use it as a little bit more of a handy Dropbox type of tool. So if people are not using Trello, I don't work for them in any way, but I really think they need to check it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I knew
that might be what I need to get rid of some of these sticky notes. As
and you know,
sharing all this stuff with us, Carrie, I'm like scribbling these notes, and I just looked down, and I read your thing, and I was like, yeah, Trello.
we're going to try that. I have a feeling that we're going to try that.
Yeah, well, I'm a list maker too, and you know, one of my friends, Nick Collette, who is the co-founder of Listly, he's all about the list, and I was like, oh, do I really need another source of lists? I like Listly; it's really awesome, and it has a lot of advantages. But I was really kind of honestly afraid that if I got really involved in Listly, I would never leave, because I'm also the list maker. I mean, there's lists over here that you cannot see that it's like guilt, you know. So anyway.
That's awesome. Carrie, okay, so Carrie, tell us. You know, we just received the first 3 days of the last 2 years of your tips from you, yes. And so the ones there are still some that are coming out in December, and yes. People can go get access to the other ones. Where do they do that at?
Sure. So both sets of 24 tips are on my Pinterest, pinterest.com/ideagirlmedia. There will be a link posted in the information on the event page that I put all of the 24 together in a blog post last year. I may do that again this year, so keep your eye on my blog, ideagirlmedia.com, right there. Yeah, actually, you don't even need the www. Just push in the ideagirlmedia.com, you'll get there. But on my Facebook page, facebook.com/ideagirlmedia. That is my Facebook page, and we're counting them down every day until Christmas Eve. And honestly, there will be a 25. There'll be a number 25, and it's a surprise.
You work 24/7. You just proved it right there.
Even on leap years.
I may take a day that I just hang up my sign and say, "Not in."
That's a good idea. Hey, Carrie, do you use the pro version of Trello?
Do I use the pro version? I do not. There are a few things that I use the pro version for, and I am very fortunate to be given opportunities to use pro versions of things because I've made friendships. But Trello is not one of them.
Okay. There you go, Debbie. Debbie asked that question of you. Mm-hmm. Great. Okay, so I think that was such fabulous information, and you guys have no idea. Carrie has. You guys think I have a lot of energy. Carrie has a different kind of the same amount of energy, and it is so amazing, and it is contagious. and it is contagious. And so, Scott, do you have any other questions that you think would be a good
I don't have any questions. I just, what I have to say is that I feel that a little bit more complete because we talked about community, we talked about the things that we have today, and man, if it weren't for people like Carrie and perhaps even you, Jess, I don't know what we would do because there's just so many moving parts and somebody has to like keeping up with it, right? And
yeah. Okay, so I do have one closing question, and that is, do you always have to build your own communities to be successful with communities?
Do you always have to build your own?
Yeah. So let's take me for example. I don't have any communities. I participate in a whole bunch of other communities. And so I'll be the first to say that. I have been a little scared to start my own community scared. That actually is the best word. Flat out. Time, unsure of where to start, how long it's going to take to get it established, all of those things. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to go where there's already an established community that I can add value to that community right away, and hopefully see, you know, my contributions will result in relationships that will benefit everybody involved later on down the road.
I have an answer for you on that. I think that your method that you've described there is very social. And there, then you form your own following, which can be considered a community if you plug in the right pieces that lead back to somewhere. So, for instance, do you accept subscribers on Facebook? So you're not
I don't know. I think my Facebook page is just totally public and open. I have no idea.
Your profile. So for
My
you,
profile.
I would recommend that you accept subscribers on Facebook.
Okay.
And then you can decide who gets what message, but then those followers become a community there in a very easy way. I think, though, that any blogger who is accepting comments and who has an RSS feed, that is a community. And so I think that you're selling yourself short by saying you don't have one.
Now, see, that is what I am so glad you said, because I always have felt that way, is I'm participating, I'm building a following, I am doing some other things, even though I'm using already built pieces. And so, for whatever reason, that's always been like a little bit of an energy drain, and I have been trying to go around that, and I feel like I'm being successful with that. So to hear you say that, it's good validation.
I hope so. I would also say that it's really good if you own something. So consider that. But I think if you own your blog and you have your community there.
Exactly. And that ultimate, and I'm a big proponent of that too. You've got to own something, and where would that be? And for me, that would be Red Direction, yeah.
And you sort of co-own the show, right?
That's right. Sort of. I do.
So there you go.
That's all. Scott, I don't know if I just stole all of your thunder or not. But,
no, you didn't. No, you didn't. So there. That's all I have to say.
That's great. All right. And on that note, we'll say thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week. Stay tuned for next week's event on our page, and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being. And here we go with the close.